Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. This is the final game week of FPL and in today's video I'll go through my early thoughts and transfer plans ahead of the final game week. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So as always, to get this out for you when the game ends on Sunday evening, I do have to start recording this during half-time of the Man City-Chelsea game. And at the moment, Haaland and Ederson are no-shows. Mahrez had an absolute stinker in the first half. I would not be surprised to not even see him come out for the second half. Rashford was a no-show in the Manchester United game. I had blanks from Trent, Estepinian and Enciso. Salah and McAllister getting a single assist and no bonus points. Fernandes blanking too. I mean, it was an absolute disaster and it has been so far in game week 37. Pretty much every other transfer plan that I had would have been better. We discussed the possibility of keeping Matoma and going for Alvarez. Of course, Alvarez has already scored. Matoma got the assist. I also discussed the possibility of going for Ferguson instead of Enciso. Obviously, Ferguson getting a brace. So I pretty much, at the moment at least, chose the worst possible transfer plans. And at the moment, I am outside the top 10k, ranked at about 11.6k. Now, of course, there are still games to play in game week 37. And we have game week 38 as well to try and get back into the top 10k. But it's been a bit of a stinker and it's a shame because I've had a few good weeks now and I was feeling very, very happy with my team for game week 37. It just hasn't ended up going very well, at least for the first set of fixtures. So fingers crossed it goes well. Let me know how you're currently getting on in game week 37. But the focus for today is going to be on game week 38 and hopefully how we can finish the season strong. So looking ahead to game week 38, I've got one free transfer and 1.9 million in the bank. And this is how the team is currently looking. And I am pretty happy with the team, to be honest. I don't see any major issues with it. There are a few players that I'm slightly worried about. Is Rashford going to be fully fit? I do think he will be by the time game week 38 comes around, mainly because that's fitness, like illness related rather than being an injury. I do have triple Brighton, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I do have Trippier and Botman that I could play from the bench, and I can, of course, make transfers too. I also have Ederson that could be a potential issue, especially if he doesn't start. And I have Raya on the bench against Man City, so I don't particularly like either of my goalkeeping options there. But I do also have some players that I am very happy with. I think Trent and Salah will be great for game week 38. I'm happy with Luke Shaw and Bruno Fernandes. If Mahrez starts, I think he's a great option in game week 38. Whether he starts or not, we'll have to wait and see, especially how maybe whether he starts the second game in game week 37 will potentially impact our thinking. I probably will still end up captaining Haaland unless we get early team news that Haaland doesn't start, in which case I do like the look of both Salah and Bruno Fernandes. It is worth noting, all of the games in game week 38 are on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. BST, which means that we could conceivably get early team news for multiple of the teams going into the game week 38 deadline. So whilst I am talking about transfer plans now, and whilst I still think it's worth looking at who you might potentially be bringing in and taking out, I would definitely wait for early team news because it could be that we get City, Arsenal and Liverpool team news right before the deadline, in which case that could massively affect our thinking. But when I look at real issues in the team and players that I really would potentially like to take out with my 1-3 free transfer, it is Ederson, but then I wonder, is it worth making a goalkeeper transfer for the final day of the season? Is there much upside in that? Potentially not. So I'll probably end up just keeping Ederson, hoping he starts, and if not, getting Raya. In the defence, I don't think I have any issues. I might play Trippier ahead of Estepinian. Other than that, I don't know that it's necessarily worth making a defensive transfer because, again, to make it that sort of high upside pick, you need them to get a clean sheet and an attacking return. So I always feel like going into game week 38, I would much rather use my one transfer on an attacker that I think can get multiple attacking returns. So when I look at my front seven, who are the big issues? Let's say that Rashford is fit. I don't really want to take out Rashford. I have absolutely no issue with Fernandes and Salah. I think they're absolutely fine. So it's Mahrez and McAllister in the midfield. McAllister actually played the number 10 role in the first game of game week 37. That bodes pretty well. If Veltman is back and starting, Gross goes back into the defensive mid role and McAllister starts in the 10 role. If I think that McAllister is going to start in the 10 role, I definitely won't be taking him out because he's absolutely brilliant there, which kind of leaves Mahrez, and really it is dependent on if we get early team news. If we don't, I might not want to take the risk, but again, if he starts, he's a great option. But that spot there feels like I could potentially use the transfer. I'm not going to take out Haaland unless we get team news again that he doesn't start, but I expect him to do so because he was rested in the first fixture of game week 37. So I guess that comes down to then Enciso as the other spot that I could potentially rotate. I do have 1.9 million in the bank, which gives me a little bit of wiggle room, but I am looking at a budget striker unless I want to take a hit. Lots of people already asking, is it worth taking a hit in game week 38? it's difficult because to take a hit in Game Week 38, you need that player to pay back the hit immediately. If I bring in someone else for Enciso as part of a -4, I need that player to outscore Enciso by 4 points in that single game week. And it makes it a lot more difficult to do so when there aren't doubles in that week. So I'm less inclined to take a hit. But at the moment, looking at this team, it's probably Mahrez, McAllister, and Enciso that I could see myself transferring out. And if I don't want to do any of those, I guess I could make a defensive transfer, try and bring in a player with a decent fixture and some attacking threat, and then maybe just hope for that 12 or 15 pointer. So that's kind of the way the team's looking now. Let's move on to my possible transfer plans and look at some of the players that I might be considering for Game Week 38. So based on everything I just said, here are some possible transfer plans that I'm currently looking at. But as per before, I am going to wait until the last minute in case we get any team leaks, because a lot of these are depending on if this player is benched, I may make this move. If this player is benched, I may make another move. And if we get absolutely no early team news or all of my players are starting, then I will have another transfer plan in place. So some of the things that I'm thinking about at the moment is if Mahrez is benched, I will of course move him to another player because he's at a really nice price point. I have 1.9 million in the bank, and there are tons of players that I can consider. Probably number one on that list is Bukayo Saka. Now, I know Arsenal now have nothing left to play for. I know Saka hasn't been that good recently, but it is the final home game of the season. I expect Arteta to still play his favourite players. They've got nothing else to wait for. They might as well play their strongest team and hopefully finish the season in style. And I expect Saka to do fairly well. Saka's data is so much better at home. He's about a 0.6, 0.7 expected goal involvement at home versus like a 0.2, 0.3 away from home. So I like the Wolves at home fixture for Saka. I think it's a strong one. Wolves have nothing left to play for. So will they rotate a bit? Will they want to go out and put on a performance? Of course. But do we expect that? Maybe less so. They're not great away from home. So I do really like Saka. I also like the look of Ødegaard or Trossard if I want to go for another Arsenal midfielder. And as you can see at the bottom, I've got some other options as well. Maddison, Gakpo, Benrahma, Elise. It could be any number of the midfielders. And when I look at possible one-week punts for the final game week, I am looking mainly in that midfield because midfielders feel like they've got the highest upside. A couple of attacking returns, bonus points, a clean sheet point, and they can come away with the 15 or 16 pointers. So at the moment, if Mahrez was to be benched, Saka's my first choice. I do like some of the other options, though. The other thing I could think about is maybe, let's say Mahrez isn't benched or we don't get any early team news around Man City. If McAllister's benched or I don't want him or I think there's for some reason that Veltman won't play and instead McAllister will play in a defensive role again, I could go from McAllister to one of the cheaper mids too. So I'm looking at Ødegaard, Trossard, Benrahma, Elise, or as you can see here, Eze, who continues to put up really good data. He's on some set pieces too, and I really like him as an option against Forest at home. Obviously, Forest are now safe. It is a way for Forest at home for Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. I really like the look of Eze and the other Crystal Palace attackers for the final game week of the season. So Eze is someone that is definitely on my radar too. So those are two possible sort of midfield transfers. Let's say that Enciso is benched, or again, let's say that I know that Mahrez and McAllister start and I do instead want to make an attacking transfer with my forwards. I actually still do like the look of Dominic Solanke. I know Everton will need to win this game at Goodison Park, but maybe that will force them, especially if there is an early goal for Bournemouth, force them to attack. They can't just sit deep for the entire game. So I like Solanke potentially on the break for Bournemouth getting a goal there. And his data is still pretty good. He's not scored tons of points recently, but I do still like him as an option. So Solanke's on my list. Other strikers that I could consider, unfortunately, because I've only got Enciso plus 1.9 in the bank, I have to go fairly cheap. But I like the look of Danny Ings, who's about 6.3 million. That could be a nice transfer too against Leicester away in the final game. Again, Leicester have a lot to play for, but that might mean that Danny Ings can catch them on the counter, or that West Ham will be able to score goals if Leicester have to go for it in the final few minutes of the game. So I like Solanke and Ings. They're probably the only two that I've considered, just because I don't have the money to go up to someone like, I don't know, like a Diogo Jota or someone like that, unless I want to make two transfers. And again, I'm keen to not take a hit in the final game week of the season. Let's say that I am actually happy with the attack, though. Let's say that, for example, Mahrez, McAllister, and Enciso, I know that all of them are starting, and I don't want to make any transfers. I could make a defensive transfer. I could do something like Botman to Pedro Porro and then end up benching Estepinian if I think that Aston Villa will score. Or I could even make a goalkeeper transfer. I could do something like Edison to Ramsdale if I feel like Man City will rotate in the final day or I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet. So I have various options here. Unfortunately, it is going to be one of those where I probably want to wait last minute and maybe see what happens in the press conferences later in the week too, and I'll update during my team selection. I do just want to discuss some of these players at the bottom, though, because these are, at the moment, my favourite differentials that I can bring into my team with one transfer. Later in the week, I will be doing a game week preview for 38, where I talk about one-week punts in more detail and dive into the data. So if you're excited for that, make sure to subscribe, and you'll see that later in the week. But I like the look of Maddison. It's his final home game, potentially ever, for Leicester. definitely his final home game of the season. I feel like he'll want to go out in style there, try and keep Leicester up, and at the very least, make sure that he puts in a good performance. So I like Maddison against West Ham. I do like the look of Gakpo. He starts most games for Liverpool. His data isn't fantastic, but I don't mind the look of him against Southampton away. It's a good fixture there, and Liverpool will probably still have something to play for. We'll have to wait and see, unless Man United pick up points against Chelsea. But even if they don't, I still expect Liverpool to go and try and get a decent result against Southampton. I spoke about Ødegaard and Trossard. I think I prefer Saka. The data's fairly similar for all of them, but Saka's on penalties, and he is very, very good at home. But I like Ødegaard and Trossard too. Benrahma's a slight minutes risk. If you want a slightly safer pick, you probably go for Jared Bowen. But Benrahma's got slightly better data, and he's on penalties, and I just feel like he's got a higher upside than Jared Bowen. But I like the idea of bringing in a West Ham attacker, as you can see by Danny Ings being there as well. I think Leicester will have to go for this game, and I can imagine this being something like, I don't know, 3 or 3-2 or something like that in this game. I think there will be a lot of goals. And then, as I said, I've got Elise there. I prefer Eze's data just because Eze has greater goal threat and Elise has greater assist threat. But I could be tempted to maybe go for a super differential and bring in Elise ahead of Eze. So these are some of the players that I'm considering. These are some of the possible transfer plans. Let me know down below, if you had my team, what would you be doing? I'll just switch back to it now so that you can see it. This is the team. What would you be doing with one free transfer? Again, let's wait for early team news potentially, but it's good to have some transfer plans in place. If I didn't have a transfer, if I didn't want to use one, I am still really happy with the team. I would hope that it's enough to get me top 10k, but I guess we'll have to see how the rest of Game Week 37 goes and then see if we need to take any big risks for Game Week 38. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 38 transfer plans video, the final transfer plans video of the season. A little bit emotional because I genuinely have enjoyed creating content for you all season and interacting with you in the comments and in the live streams too. And if you have enjoyed this series and this video in particular, please do drop a like. Make sure to comment down below. Subscribe too. We are on the road to 75,000 subscribers. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.